I haven't seen this show in the first place.
Oh, cool. Well, welcome aboard. Come on in, everybody. It's early or mid-morning for these guys.
It's 11.
Come
It's
on
fine. It's fine.
11. It's 10 where Glenn is. Russ might be joining us soon if he can get his equipment together, and Brian K. Morris might be here if his alarm went off right. He says he takes Cookie to work, so he might be 10 minutes late, is what he said.
Yeah, that's fine.
Welcome to Comics by Night, folks. Come on in. It's early morning where I'm at. It's way late in the evening if you're out on the West Coast, and Russ is here. Russ, are you there? Russ, you're still frozen.
It's the 1 frame per second thing.
Yeah. You might double check your equipment, buddy, and come back in.
No, it's probably the connection at this point.
Start shaking some wires. The chat is open, folks. Chat's open. We're here for you. Russ, you might have to reboot. We're all here for you except Russ. Russ is frozen. So, welcome to the transparency of podcasting, folks.
Technical difficulties. From start to end to finish.
Here, I thought I'd have the technical difficulty. I woke up this morning to take the wife to work, and the TV wasn't working, so had to reboot the cable. Russ, jump out, come back in, buddy. I'm going to remove you.
Yeah, you might just want to restart the router at that point.
Yep. Sounds like a hardcore reboot to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right, everybody, come in. It's Comics by Night. We're going to talk about the funny book business and how to put things together. I'm hoping to talk about writing today. So we'll see what happens.
The one subject I don't do usually.
Well, you might learn.
Oh, no, I'm right.
Learn not to do it.
We're here to talk about process, show stuff off, and, talk about how to do this funny book business we do. So here's our opening. Our opening kind of says it all. Sums up the idea, the basic philosophy of this show. Here we are.
What was that? This is not a charade. We need total concentration. Now, once again, this time, with the...
There we are. Come on in, everybody. Sums it up nicely. Thank you.
That sums it up. Yeah. No, I know exactly what the show is about right now.
Short and to the point.
Short and to the point. We are TVMA DLSV, in case you were wondering. Sometimes we might have a dirty word slip or a expletive. It's not really a dirty word, but just so you know, we're aimed at more adults than kids.
They allowed me in, so
especially at 5 o'clock in the morning.
5 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
Anything is possible. 2 a.m. on the West Coast. Here we are. We'd have Christy Shin on, but she's probably not even awake at this time.
Is she ever awake? Ooh.
She's always awake.
Yeah.
It was a joke, Christy. It was a joke.
Yeah. She's got a sense of humor.
I would hope so. Stuff she puts out, I would hope she has a sense of humor.
She has to have a sense of, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, if anybody's got one, it's Christy.
Sure. I'm your host, Randy Zimmmerman. I've been a long-time alternative and independent comics creator, publisher. Been working in the funny book business for most of my life. Retailed for over 10 years. Created my own newspaper for over 10 years. Comic paper. Normally, here we are. Normally, I have a copy handy. Here we are, comic book paper. I even have Christie's book handy at the moment. So
there we go.
So we started. Nita wanted to try out some instructional videos, so she put up the instructional video on how to draw hot stuff, and I said if hot stuff gets 100 views, I would do a video on how to draw a demon bitch.
Nice.
Christy said she wanted to see it done. So. Done a lot of stuff, been a lot of places, been working in the business for decades. So hopefully we all know what we're talking about. And wanted to start this late evening program, one, to see if anybody was awake. And apparently, according to our chat, nobody is awake yet this morning.
No, I'm seeing 3 people.
We do have 3 people watching, but nobody talking.
That's probably us. We're watching.
Don't be afraid, guys. Don't be afraid.
I probably need to go over to Facebook and fix my the video feed. It's always set for friends instead of public. So
they forgot to. They left it open on their phone and it just started playing.
That could be terrified.
Too.
Yep.
Waking up from a nightmare.
John Carr says he's in the house. He gave us a thumbs up there on the old Facebook page. So John,
there we go.
Good morning. Hope you're doing all right. Everybody, we're here to talk funny book business, and we're here to talk it with who's probably going to be a regular, Mr. Glenn B. Fleming. Glenn, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Glenn Fleming. I'm a writer, artist, and publisher. I've got 10 books published now, all on Amazon, varying subjects from science fiction to social sciences to astronauts to humor books and children's books. My latest book is this, which is talks about my visits to Jack Kirby's house. I went a couple of times in the 80s and 90s. And with that, you also get a DVD of me talking to Jack in the studio. You can get that from me. I'm the illustrator and writer of Hatch. This is the first book. The second book is about to be released. It's going on Indiegogo probably at the end of the month. And I publish Comics Unlimited. I publish Comics Unlimited, which is a 100-page quarterly magazine about comics worldwide. And that's about me. Plus lots of other things you can find on all over the place.
All over the place.
All over, right. Everywhere. Everywhere.
Also joining us today is Mr. Mike Jimmy. Mike, introduce yourself.
Good morning, folks. I'm Mike Jimmy, the brand of Fairies and Ints. I've been publishing and creating comics for the past 5 years. And yeah, just been doing things and getting art done and started to know quite a bit about this business at this point. So hopefully I can be a worthy input on the discussion today.
So we're talking about writing today, Randy, is that right?
Yeah.
In comics. Which comes first?
That looks a lot better.
That does look a lot better. Mr. Russ, how you doing?
Oh,
I don't think my computer.
Oh.
Still glitchy.
Still glitchy.
Still bad?
Yeah. Want to try again? You're getting closer. And there he goes, folks. That could be a great running gag here coming up. So at least Russ is putting forth the effort. We deeply appreciate it.
We need a counter at the bottom.
Yeah.
It has been 3 times. Russ has restarted.
So writing for comics. Mike Jimmy, you've written at least 4 books that I know of, probably more than that.
I don't write.
Comics, I mean. You don't write?
I've written 1 comic, which was the graphic novel I started with making comics with, Sage the Sunset. That I got about 110 pages of art into, wrote about 150 pages. And then Love and Korra took precedence, but I don't write those.
Oh, okay.
But I do know a lot about editing, know a bit about script writing, but it's, yeah, I'm probably going to be more on the editing side of things and what I like to work with as an artist, more than me actually writing.
Mm-hmm. Russ, that's a completely different look for you.
Hello, everyone. How are you? I'm just done drawing all the Doctor Who's in the world, and I'm glad to be here.
Your sound is a little staticky this morning.
Yeah. Okay, how about I back out and I'll come back in again?
Okay, that's what Russ is doing.
So, okay, yeah. Well, we're going to tag. It was a tag team thing this morning,
yeah,
so
he's on his 4th attempt. I think he's shaking all of his wires and stuff, checking his connections.
Is that code?
No.
Okay. I'll back out. I'll come back in. Here we go.
All right.
They actually switched.
Brian, how you doing? Russ, how are
that
you?
was good.
I'm Russ.
We just had Brian on.
Is this better?
Yes.
Much better.
I don't think my network had enough coffee this morning. I think that's what it is. That was bizarre. I don't know what was going on. I couldn't get an internet connection.
You have to keep the hamster fortified. That's what it is.
And then,
you got to feed him every once in a while.
Then my router just dropped the network for some bizarre reason. So I had to go onto the 5G network on my router, and I just don't get it. I don't get it.
It's the Illuminati watching you.
No,
I'd have thought you had my cable company.
I think it's because I mentioned something about lizards last night.
That'll do it.
It's the lizard people.
Brian, you got a fan running or something?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
You might want to turn it away from the microphone.
You might want to tell him to keep his voice down then.
Just for that, I'm going to yell loud enough that you can hear me, Russ, without any earphones, okay?
No. I was talking about your fan.
Oh, everybody should have a fan. I went for years without any fans, and now look at me.
No offense, but they shouldn't have one if it sounds like that.
It's my only source of oxygen. Okay, hold on. The things I do for you people. Holy shit, boy!
There's this small man in the corner with a fez on.
I should get somebody who's just doing this with a piece of paper on me. Hold on,
just
people.
Make sign language.
I've only got one sign, Randy, and it's rude, but I love you, so I can't do it. So I'll be right back.
You can wind it up.
A few feet. That works. That's enough.
Oh,
I sure can hear that in my headphones.
What a morning.
Wow.
It's a great morning.
Oh, that's better. Oh, there we go. There's the start of the show.
Russ, introduce yourself.
Hello.
There you go.
Introduce
yourself. Oh,
my name's Russ Leach. I'm a comic book artist from the UK. Currently drawing Batman and Only Death Can Save Us, and on the end of a tenure on Doctor Who. And you can find me at russleach.com.
Great. Brian, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Randy.
Is that really going to make you uncomfortable? Not having that fan on?
No, I'm an old man, Randy. I need all the comforts of home I can get. No, for you, I will struggle through this because I'm a trooper.
We appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you having me.
Introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Brian K. Morris, freelance writer of comics and novels, editor, award-winning author even. I don't know how to deal with that. Facebook famous YouTuber and former mortician's assistant. I edit all kinds of wonderful books, such as this wonderful gem right there. Oh my God, Glenn's got one too. And I also am the editor of, this is to establish my comic cred, books like The Zombieful World of Oz by Eric S. Hawkins. And also write my own stuff, Santa Sign, international big seller. My award-winning Snow short story in there. Plus I do things for other people. Got new anthologies out and got the old stuff out too. But also worked a comic shop for 2 decades, and the effects are just now beginning to wear off. So, so otherwise, I'm glad to be here at an hour. I can actually probably be here more regularly. I have my wife's blessing to be here. So
don't threaten us with a good time.
Oh, I've only just begun, Randy. I'm telling you.
There's a song about that.
That's right. And I am your friend in low places.
There you are. We're going to try to talk about writing today.
Good luck.
We lost a viewer. Oh, no, he's back. Here we are. The chat's open, everybody. Don't be afraid to speak up. We're here to answer your questions if you have any, especially about writing today, because I kind of wanted to focus since we had Brian here. I didn't realize he's going to be able to make it on a regular basis, but that's okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, always welcome, buddy.
Oh, man, you bet. Thank you.
Writing, how do you do it?
Painfully. Mm-hmm. I was having a discussion actually last night with somebody about comic book writing.
Yeah.
And it's, I will tell you, having done a multitude of different writing types, I've done articles, I've done novels, short stories. I was a playwright for a long time, and I've written advertising. Comic books are among the most difficult because there are so many rules to it. And once you get those rules down, it becomes then almost plug and play, and it's like making choices. I've also done some acting, and one of the things that a lot of directors talk about is as your character, you make choices on how to respond to certain stimuli in the play and based on what other actors do. And it's that way with comics, because it's a page of comic art, to me, is like a series of snapshots that have to tell the whole story. It's not like a film where you give people things to say and you drop them down either on a stage or in front of a camera and let them go, whether it takes them 2 minutes to get through the dialogue or 20 minutes to get through the dialogue. You don't have that luxury in comics, and you also have to pick your moments, like like all the great artists, Kirby, Buscema, Grell, always had those moments where they had like the full page art, the pinup basically,
Splash.
and the splash, like a splash or something in the middle of the story. That's to me what I call a ta-da moment,
right?
Because you see it, and you go ta-da. It's something that should be visually impressive. That you got to know when to either have those ta-da moments or break it down into multiple panels. And I realize I'm not doing anything at all to make this sound easier. And it's not. For me, it's easier actually to write a novel than it is to write a 20-page comic story, because of those various choices. The time that it takes is different, of course. But if you put enough forethought into it, or maybe if you overthink it like I tend to, it's a process, and like I said, it's a series of choices. Plus, it is more incumbent upon you can have a book with two people just sitting on a bench just talking to each other back and forth, but in a comic book, you've got to allow your artist to take at least half of the storytelling job. That you should have something for the in the cases when you do it traditionally, when the writer chooses what the scene is to be, rather than the Marvel style, I would say, where the artist is told, here's what I'd like to happen, and then the artist makes it, lays the pages out and paces the action, and then you add the dialogue and captions later. So, but that's the one thing I do love about comics, is that when you're working with a terrific artist, the synergy creates something that's better than what either of you could do separately. You take like a Lee and Kirby, or a Simon and Kirby, or I had another example, Claremont and Byrne. You see those guys, and you see them separately. They've all done work away from each other, and it's great. But you put the two of them together, and there is a sort of magic that occurs when they rely on the other person to carry their share of the storytelling load.
That's like Lennon and McCartney.
Exactly. Good example, Glenn.
Yeah, it's very rare. Very.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a terrific example.
Yeah.
And both of those guys, I read up on them years ago. Bernie Taupin could write music. Elton John could write lyrics, but they were sucky at it. But you put the two together, and they shore up each other's weaknesses, and something incredible comes as a result of that collaboration. And I think it's the same way with pairing up a decent writer with a great artist. It's there's just something that transcends what they could do individually.
Yeah, to pick up on what you were saying about the storytelling, in a comic, those panels they're all key frames, aren't they?
Oh, exactly.
And with a prose book, as you will know, having written one, you can spend, like Stephen King does, you can spend 10 pages describing the guy walking up the street, describe every cobble in this road and all that. And he does that so well. But in a comic book, you've got to get to the point. You don't have 10 pages of the guy walking up the street. You've got to get to the point sooner, which is obvious. But I think that the greatest creators in comics are the writer-artists like Kirby, I know Lee does the dialogue, and we won't get into that area, but I think Kirby was the driving force of all that.
I'd agree.
And Stan Lee's words were great, but I think the writer-artist is the most formidable person in comics.
I think the kind that you find the strongest when it comes to creating comics are the ones that can write the scenario and draw those out. But and Kirby was definitely one of those. And what you find is that often they're not that great at dialogue, where a prose writer would be a lot better at it, because that is, the driving force behind dialogue. Like, you have to be able to get a scene, describe it, while still being able to make the conversation flow naturally, where the comic, you just get the scene and the dialogue is a whole separate thing on its own.
Yeah, it's a word economy. You've got to get to the point. You've got 20 or 30 words in any panel, or maybe in any word balloon, for the character. So you've not got time. You've literally not got the space to have a monologue. You've got to get to the point and keep it to the point. That's the way I see it. I mean, like I say, I think the writer-artist is the key. I know Alan Moore on Watchmen. I know I've got the book from Dave Gibbons, and Alan Moore would give Dave Gibbons total descriptions of rooms. He would say there's a coffee cup on near the window and all that kind of thing. And you would think that gave Dave Gibbons little scope, but because Dave Gibbons is such a good artist, he makes it work even more. But the thing about Alan Moore is that he is a cartoonist as well, so he can visualize, and that's the important thing, is to visualize.
I think getting that kind of detail in a script is only restrictive when you're told exactly what camera angle to shoot at.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that takes away from the skill of the storytelling of the sequential artist.
Yeah.
A good comic book writer should not overdo it, as it were. They shouldn't go so far. It's okay to put down sketches and say, right, I'd prefer it if this person was on the left and this person was on the right. That works when you put in the speech bubbles as well. There's another art form that goes right the way from the writer all the way down to the letter that people tend to ignore and forget about comic book production. So that's okay. Describing a scene is okay. And saying something as specific as there has to be a coffee cup on the table, that's great. Because when you're drawing, you need all these things logged in. You should be. That's the trouble when people go use 3D tools too much, because you should have a map of what's going on in your environment, in your scene, so that you know when you can take stuff out. Which is another key to drawing good sequential art and good comics, is knowing when not to have a background in something, when not to show everything that you've got there, but always to keep a tab on where everything is.
Right.
Exactly.
One of the biggest pet peeves I have when working with a writer is getting a scene description, and then at the end of a page, there's and then he grabs this thing that wasn't described.
Yeah.
Because then you got to go back the entirety to put the thing in and hope it works.
Although they would say, read the script first.
Yeah.
Devil's advocate. Sorry, I'm being awkward.
I
But
usually
it
take
is
care of that
incredibly
during
annoying.
editing. Yes.
Yeah. Well, was it Henry Kempson used to say that the playwright, that if you have a character pull a gun in Act 3, you better show him putting it in his pocket in Act 1.
Yeah.
And and Russ made some great points about writing scripts that I think exactly also when you know who your collaborator is.
Right.
That helps immensely. Like if I wrote a story for Eric Hawkins, he and I have been doing work for 6-7 years together. I know what he brings to the table. I know what he expects from me. So my scripts for him are less although he denies it. They're a lot less detailed than they would be for somebody if I don't know who it is, because I have had some writer or some artists rather when I worked for some smaller companies where I'll do that pencils and inks for $5. Yeah, you get what you pay for sometimes, and
a lot of the time.
Sometimes you just get what you pay for.
Yeah.
A
friend of mine says good artists aren't cheap and cheap artists ain't good. So or somebody who and I don't mean this in a bad way, but English is not their first language. Although some people say it's not mine either, but anyway, they run it. I've had someone run a script through Google Translate.
Right.
And any resemblance to the original was strictly coincidental. And of course, the editor doesn't go back and say, you need to redraw that. They make me go back and rewrite it to fit the stuff that no longer fits in the original story. So
you can have it done well. You can have it done well. You can have it done cheap, or you can have it done fast.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the latter.
Yeah.
That's a big saying in the apparel printing business.
It's
Good,
a big
fast,
saying
and cheap,
in the software industry as well. It's
yeah.
exactly that, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing everywhere. It's about value for the work that you get. And that's just that you have to apply that to business, and you know, we are in a business. It is a bit. I get paid to draw. People get paid to write. Okay, that makes it a business. It means you have to apply those kind of rules to it.
Yeah.
And the thing with writing for comics is that there aren't any rules, and there shouldn't be any rules. A few months ago, people supposedly thinking that they were in the know wanted to do a standardized version of scripting comics, and it's like, no, it's never going to work.
Oh, God,
it's never going to work, because all throughout comics history, things were either done on the fly or done with artists, writers, and there is no set way to do scripts.
They'll be having us doing our work in trousers next.
Yeah.
Oh, I quit. I totally quit.
No, that kind of, you could see where that was coming from. That was coming from it wasn't coming from a place of creativity.
No.
That was coming from, do everything like this so that we can pump out more crap. That's basically what it's about. And
I thought it was more like, do everything like this because I say so.
Well, there is an aspect of that. Some people like to have control, don't they?
Yeah.
And that's not the kind of industry. It is a creative industry, and you've seen it from Hollywood, you've seen it from TV, you see it in comic books. The more restrictions you put on things like that, the less creative they become.
That's exactly
and the less entertaining they are. Yeah. And okay, there are going to be people that are a bit wild that don't get it right, but that's why you have to apply yourself in a business manner. So I try and be as creative as I can be, okay? But at the same time, I hit deadlines and I make sure that I invoice people. It's part of my business. It's making sure that the business works whilst being a creative. And just putting a bunch of restrictions or rules on that doesn't make it work any better. Yeah. In fact, it makes it work worse. So
very true.
Yeah, and the only rules, I think, are just technical ones.
Yeah.
Like, you can't put 250 words per panel in a 9-panel grid. And I've seen those scripts come across my desk, and it's like, oh dear God, you've never read a comic book, have you?
I've had the letter scripts like that. Yeah.
I think there are some great guidelines that you can use, like
frameworks.
Stuff that I don't appreciate as much because I'm a novice writer. About how reveals when you flip pages over, putting action on the right hand page, all that kind of stuff. Those are very clever aspects that people seem to miss about writing comics. A lot of people miss the whole concept of the page turn.
Yes.
And how that works.
So true.
Yes.
So my eyes were opened to that by a couple of writers that I've spoken to. And so there are so many things that guides can help you with, guidelines, advice, little pointers, but rules, restrictions, cages, no.
Meant to be broken.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So true.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Will Eisner likened writing comic scripts to beats in notes in a symphony. Every beat is important. Every panel needs to further the script or further the entertainment value of the work, and everything is you're always moving forward. Always, you're not stopping. You're just the plot's constantly moving. The dialogue is moving. The characterization's moving. Everything. and every beat is important. You have to make every beat important. But he wrote spirit stories in 7-page increments that had beginning, middles, and ends. So he was always those plots moved.
Yeah.
Even if they were just conversations, that was still moving the plot.
Something I've been fortunate to do, not so much on Doctor Who magazine, but Doctor Who Adventures, and for Batman now, is to draw 10-page stories, so that like it's got a beginning, middle, and end in 10 pages,
right?
And it scoops around, and it's got Rick, who worked with me on Only Death Can Save Us, and Jason, who edits and writes on Batman at the moment and on Doctor Who Adventures specifically. They're just so damn good at that. They're so damn good at wrapping that up in that 10 pages and giving people a great ride, and I think a lot of that gets lost these days.
Well, that's really the big thing that made Marvel so great back in the 60s and 70s, is you had these already trained professionals who had been working in comics for decades, getting scripts, really getting outlines, or getting phone calls even from Stan Lee going, what do you want to write? What do you want to draw? Well, let's do this. The FF go here, they do this and they do that, and then it ends like that. Okay, good. Click.
Yeah, we mentioned this the other week. And then
it's up to the artist to stretch that out to 22 great pages.
Yeah, we mentioned this the other week about. I brought up Jack Kirby's Captain America when it was in Tales to Astonish, was it?
Tales of Suspense. But go
Tales
ahead.
of Suspense. Yeah, Tales of Suspense. Yeah. Submariner was in the other one, wasn't he?
Yeah.
The first story was always 12 pages, and the second was always 10, and they used to swap, didn't they? But when you look at those Kirby Captain Americas, especially the one with the tumbler, what a fantastic opening splash page that is. But in those stories, if you look at them, the Captain America is always right in the thick of the action on the splash page. He doesn't get the call to go there because there's no pages to do that. He was right in the middle of the action and then resolved it. And it's just a different way of doing it than it is in the Fantastic Four, because he's got another 10 pages to develop the story. Right. It's just a fantastic way of doing it. It's like a shorthand of a shorthand. It's absolutely genius the way he works in Captain America.
The shorter you can create a full story, the stronger you are as both a writer and an artist.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so important to hit those beats.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're still talking about Will Eisner with work that was done like over half a century ago. Yeah. Yet there's stuff that's being put out now that I kind of forget about the minute I put it down on the table again.
I don't even pick it up.
Yeah, right. And I wash my hands when I'm done.
There's 6-issue stories that don't move faster than what Eisner used to do in 7 pages.
Oh yeah.
Just incredible stuff. Yeah,
so good at it.
I think
be thankful that the stuff's actually been archived, because nowadays it would be problematic to some of them spirit stories would be questionable.
That's true,
because of the context of the time.
Right. So just to back up what Glenn was saying, the first page on my graphic novel is the thick of it.
That's lovely.
That's the thick of it. So the first thing that you see is a massive battle with Death center. They're splaying these guys all over the place, and then you get a little bit of background over the top of it. But and this isn't a short story. This is 66 pages, so it isn't like got to wrap it up in 10 pages. And that's, I did this because as a trope, as it were, I think it works, because it means that you can jump people straight into fun and action.
Yeah.
Okay.
You grab them straight away.
Grab them straight away. The first page is like, whoa, what the hell's going on? And
exactly right. Yeah.
And then within a few pages, it's within a few pages it's calmed down, and you've got some world building. Okay.
And 20 billion years later.
20 billion years later, and then again you come back within a few pages, and you're saying, within the flashback, good Lord, what's going on now? Another sort of like throwing things in the middle. So even from a novice writer's perspective, there are tricks, there are tropes that will help you, that will make the story just kick off in the right way. And Glenn absolutely nailed it with that. I mean, looking back on those Kirby books and the Bronze Age books. That's exactly where my inspiration comes from to write the books that I do.
Yeah,
Sure.
So,
fantastic. Yeah,
Oh yeah. Well, that's
but
one
he
thing.
was the best.
Yeah. Well, another thing is that I think writers ought to study what artists do.
Yes.
I say one of the most influential books on my comic book writing was How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way.
Serious.
I mean, seriously, that should be a textbook for everybody trying to get into this business. That's the one, Russ. That's the one. And I see how close you keep it, so
Yeah,
that's
just-
an endorsement right there.
There's a few others up here. I've got like Stan Lee's Dynamic Anatomy, Drawing
Yeah.
Dynamic Hands, that stuff. But this top. And
Hogarth's
I watched-
Hogarth's Dynamic
yeah,
Anatomy.
Yeah, I've got Hogarth in there.
Oh yeah.
And I watched the cartoon.
Glenn just went to
kayfabe.
get his stuff.
I
Anyway,
watched
go
the
ahead.
cartoon kayfabe on this,
Yeah.
and they made some good points, and they were.
There we are.
There we
Another
are.
good one.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
And
Another
they
good one.
were quite reverential of it, but at the same time they were in places a little dismissive, as though it wasn't necessarily relevant anymore in some ways, and I would disagree with them wholeheartedly.
I'm going to
It
copy
should be
Glenn
relevant
here. So
because-
just I'm going to copy Glenn here for a second. Just keep talking, Russ.
Yeah, it should be relevant. It should always be relevant because you should be entertaining your reader. Okay, and you could say, okay, it's maybe not so relevant for Slice of Life, or for maybe a historic thing or whatever. Although that's not fair because you should still entertain. But I could understand in some places where you maybe wouldn't necessarily use some of the techniques because drawing the Marvel way is exactly what it's saying. It's very fantastical. It's very superhero heavy and all the rest of it. However, saying that, I've drawn several educational stroke historic comics, and I've used techniques that I use in all the other comics that I draw because it's about keeping the reader active. It's about drawing them in and making something as exciting as possible with the camera angles and the scene depiction that you can.
Well, that's
And
that's
even
exactly-
the quiet moments.
That's exactly what Will Eisner does in this book when he does Hamlet. He sets Hamlet on a rooftop in New York with the original prose on it. Oh, there it is. and the
Lines in the
art-
bit.
Not just that, but I've got nicked corners and beaten. Yeah,
That's
there's
lovely.
A tear at the
know it's
bottom of the
been
cover.
read.
That's a beautiful copy then, because it's been loved.
Yeah.
Oh,
Loved.
and
Loved.
just to pull a Glenn here for a second.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
look at
There
that.
we go.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow!
Oh.
Well, unfortunately, mine doesn't have that. So
It's my birthday soon.
You're not getting
That's
this.
nice.
No, I know you're leaving that one for your grandkids.
Yeah,
It's
That's one of
funny
the-
though, Russ,
one of the
is-
Eisner signatures I have signed directly to me. So.
Amazing,
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah,
It's like this book's never gonna leave my collection. Well, sign it to me. Yeah.
Yeah,
I hear
no,
it.
beautiful. Yeah,
That's nice.
It's funny, Russ, because I did the writer for Lava Corda 3 did exactly the same. Where
Right.
you got the action, and then it's got to zoom out first, and then you just dial down.
yeah,
You get the world building in.
Yeah, but stuff's happening there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's moving forward all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what you want. It's like I have said this several times today. A lot of these things are forgotten in modern storytelling techniques.
Amen. Yep.
And it's not that I don't think it's that they're being ignored. I don't believe that. I don't believe that creators are intentionally ignoring it. There will always be a few and saying that's old hat. I just think it's forgotten. It's a forgotten art. They're not, because everybody is surrounded by the kind of storytelling that you see in movies and TV. It's almost like it's come back to comic books, and instead of going from the comic books to the TV and movies, it's now going the other way, and it's kind of making people write almost as if they were doing some kind of submission for a film script. Or a TV series over several floppies, and that's not the way comics work, especially
I think you're
superhero
being
and
too-
science fiction comics.
I think
if
you're
you-
giving it way too much credit, Russ.
Yeah, I think
The reason
I think
the reason you get these 6-issue stories is because all of these writers have been told that they're all going to be collected in 6-issue chunks. So do 6-issue stories. I blame
there's that as well. Yes.
I blame Brian Bendis for taking the basic storytelling and stretching it out ridiculously over 6 issues.
But none of this is in isolation. This is all this is all on a backdrop of comics not being marketed to kids for 2 decades properly.
Well, really not being marketed at all.
Well, not being marketed at all, but because it and again, I keep saying this, I love the direct market. I love comic shops. Okay. Yeah. But comics should be in comic shops, and they should be in 7-Elevens and everywhere else like they used to be. Okay. And because if kids don't see them, they don't think they exist. All right. And so what's happening is that market, that the demographic is changed so radically from 30 or 40 years ago that kids are now only reading the comics they get with toys on the front and stuff like that. Or stuff that's directly, it is a child's comic, like Ninja Go or Lego Batman or something like that.
And those and those books, short stories done in one.
But the great thing about them is that they do have these short stories in, and they have lots of activities in as well. So that actually they're a bit of especially the stuff I've done with Panini and am doing with Panini, they harken back to a time when you used to get annuals for Christmas. In the annuals, you'd get comic strips, and you'd get crosswords, and you'd get stories, and you'd get puzzles, and they're really, really good for kids. It's great for education, but it's great entertainment as well. So in some ways, by having those magazines where they are, they're keeping that activity aspect, which is great, but it's still not making as much of the market of the juvenile market that it used to be 40 years ago. And by putting everything into the comic shops and into the direct market and then into an older demographic, and then because of that, the stories, like we had great stories where they deconstructed heroes, Batman, Killing Joke, Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, all that kind of stuff, which I loved, and then the exec said, just make more of that.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's part of the backdrop as well. And you've moved so far away from juvenile all ages comics that it kind of lends itself to this way of writing, this kind of NCIS sort of big Hollywood writing.
Formulaic procedural.
Instead of fun.
This is where big businesses spoil things, because you would get people like Jack Kirby who would write good stories. Then the businessmen come in and say, that's good, write 5 more like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, continue to write the good stories.
Yeah. And that's where that balance between business and creativity, it's always where that cocks up. Basically, it's always when it goes astray.
That's one of the real gemstones of Kirby's Fourth World work, because he got over to DC and was pretty much unbridled to go, at least for a little while. That's why those books only lasted 11 issues, or Mr. Miracle ran 18, I believe, is because that was pure Kirby let on the loose. And he was so good instinctually, and he had done this work for so long, he knew instinctually the structure. He knew how to make that story arc go, and how I'm at page 20 or 21. I need to finish it up and cliffhanger it and send it off with a bang. So you have to wonder how many of those stories he actually laid out in his head before he sat down and started doing them, or how many of them he was just, here's where we start and then we go. and then here's where I'm on 15 or 16. I got to get us in the middle of the big war, and then small resolution or kicked off into a cliffhanger or what else, but within the next couple of pages. Just so genius and so skilled, literally, because he had done it for so long, using his own characters just to me, nothing matches the imagination level of the New Gods, Forever People. And it's just even Jimmy Olsen, the Jimmy Olsen run he did, so imaginative, so just off the wall stuff, and so crazily done. Just can't get enough of it.
Yeah, well, and we've been bashing corporations, which I'll do all day long, thank you. But I think another problem is education among the creators.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about comics from like the 60s. These were primarily done by guys who were in or approaching middle age. The original people in the 40s and 50s, they didn't learn it from comics because they were building the foundation of the industry. Mm-hmm. They learned it from, like, quote-unquote real books. They learned it from movies. They learned it from stage, other storytelling techniques, and they adapted it for the medium. Then you had, like, the 60s creators, like Roy Thomas, who still had a classical education, but, he learned from the people who learned from outside the medium. And then you get the 70s people who learn from the people who learn from outside the medium. But then after that, you're getting people who enter the business who are learning it from the comics.
And it's being watered down all the time.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of dilution of the information they can get. So they're getting further away from the Will Eisners and the Joe Schusters and the guys who could really tell a story, and the Kirbys.
Yep.
And they're wanting to put their own adult spin on things, which is taking them out of the fun, imaginative elements.
And in the Silver Age, a lot of the writers were coming out of the pulp era as well. And they were writing pulp stories, and they knew structure. They knew how to keep a story moving. They had to tell exciting tales back then, or they didn't get work.
Right. And some like Alfred Bester were also doing radio at the time, which is very structured. And he was doing short stories, novels, and comics and radio. So, he was an all-around talent.
This is what Russ was saying earlier about it's being forgotten. So because people are... the fans produce the comics now, don't they? Fans of fans of fans, and they've forgotten the essence of it, which is what Russ was saying.
Right.
They've forgotten the essence of how to do it.
Well, some would argue that they're not even fans, that they're just there because their buddies said that they could get a job writing funny books or comic books. Comic books? Oh, anybody can write comic books. Well,
that's on my DVD where Kirby talks about his friend when he says he goes to his mother and says. Jackie's got a job drawing comics. I'm going to draw comics as well. Yeah. So that was in the 30s. So it's the same thing all the time. But as Russ said earlier, like I say, it's been diluted all the time because people have lost the essence of it and why you do things and how you do things and because and all that. It's just like people think it's easy, like everything. People think it's easy to sing and it's not.
Right.
No, it is. I'll show you later.
Well, anyone could do it, but doing it well is quite another matter.
That's the key. That's the key. Once you get the structure down and you know how the pages are supposed to work. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Just imagine you being a Silver Age editor, somebody in the 60s who's coming out of the radio writing experiences or pulp and prose and all this, and you get these scraps of papers from this 13-year-old kid who picked up and just fell in love with Legion of Superheroes. Yeah. And he sends you this whole story done in rustic looking panels, as if the kid had sat there literally on notebook paper, drawn it out and mailed it in. And then to read that story and go, gee, kid, this is pretty damn good. Maybe. And so what if you didn't write it in a professional script style? Here's this whole story, all the elements are here. You need to come into the office and talk to us about it because
Jim Shooter.
Yeah, you might be a talented dude. And he goes, can I bring my mom with me? And they go, how old are you, kid? Well, I'm 13.
Yeah.
Well,
bring your mom. Come on.
Please bring your mom.
How good would you have had to have been, to walk in right off at 13 and be writing Legion of Superheroes,
Oh, yeah. I did a similar thing before I went to see Jack Kirby. I called him on the telephone and I spoke with him. I've got the recording of this, but I've been told I can't play it because I don't have permission, which I did get actually before I started recording. So if I had recorded getting the permission, but anyway, Jack, we had this conversation with Jack Kirby, and I said to him, I'm coming out to California next year. Can I come and see you? And he said, yeah, of course you can. How old are you? And I said, 32. So he said, oh,
that's new.
Yeah, you're like more than two Jim Shooters. Wow. You're like having a whole crowd.
So there you go.
That's funny.
Well,
That's weird, Russ. I just caught your note.
Yeah.
We can be transparent here. If there's something I can fix, what's the link problem?
The Renato in the chat just suggested that the link, I think, in the description is incorrect.
Yeah, the link in the description doesn't lead to
the Facebook.
That's how I got here. The independent
No.
forum.
No. I sent you a
new-
PM link.
No, I can always use new glasses. I mean, I should have followed that one.
The link in the description, yeah, it takes you off to.
Yeah, let me go. I'll take care of that.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Renato.
Thank you, Renato. I thought it was the Russian porn bots again.
Yeah.
Oh, Mike Jimmy, you're Renato. You're Renato.
No.
Oh no. All right. Thanks.
I'll take care of it.
Willie
thanks very
J
much.
draws. I think Gen X. I think
Gen
X is the last gen that appreciates the art of creating comics, respects the history, and creators of the past. No, I think it's to the person, because you've got people coming up that actually want to do comics, that learn the profession as they go along.
I've bumped into plenty of younger people who.
I don't think it's just generational. I do think that there's a lot more people in comics now that don't care about the industry, or who are trying to deconstruct or destroy the industry on purpose out there that get jobs with these larger companies. That's why you're seeing so much horribly done deconstructionism. When it should be, these people probably never sat down and read Watchmen all the way through. And like, I'm not going to pull up an example in order to point a finger at them. People high up at Marvel who have very important positions, you ask them what the first comic they read, they'll tell you they don't read very many comics, but they remember seeing X-Men on TV.
Renato's got a good point here in
introduction
in the
to
chat.
Comics.
Very good points.
I'll have to fix it in post, but we'll take care of it.
And no, I mean what they've just said. Renato's just spoken about gamer culture and how it's wiped out the potential for comic book writers. So many people doing fan fiction for games, and the reason for that is not inherently a comic book problem. The reason for it is the way the business, like I was saying earlier, has detached it from the juvenile market. And so if comics were as big as they used to be, then people would be doing the same thing for comics as they do for games and for card games and all the other kind of stuff, because it would be part of their lives. It would be there and it would be ever present. And that's why it's not happening. And of course, the breakup of the industry. And when I talk about breakup, I'm talking about breaking it from the way that it used to be into what it is now. Also means that you don't get the same kind of people that want to be in the comics industry. You'll get writers, you'll get good writers, but they don't necessarily just want to be comic book writers. They want to be writers. Okay. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. Not dissing that in any way, but the comic book industry used to be about comics and nothing else. And the people that usually produce the best stuff are those that aren't interested in doing anything else. They just want to make comics. Unfortunately, the fact that there isn't a lot of money in it does make it very difficult. But that's what it's all about. It's like I'm not interested in writing. Like, don't get me wrong. You've got to take this in the round. If somebody came up to me and said, "Look, Only Death Can Save Us is great. We'd like to make it into a Saturday morning cartoon." Fantastic. Okay, but I didn't get involved in that book. Okay, or that story to make Saturday morning cartoons or to make T-shirts or to do anything. I made it because I wanted to make as good a comic book as I could because I loved comic books. Simple as that. And that's the problem is that there's probably not enough of that. And it's not. I don't point the finger and say it's particularly people's fault. It's the way the industry has developed.
Yes,
and it is a specific skill set. I like to tell folks, if you go back and read the first comics that were written by J. Michael Straczynski, which was actually adaptations or stories off of Babylon 5, the early Babylon 5 comic from DC, you read those first 3 or 4 books, they're terrible. They're clunky, they're wordy, they're just just incredibly hard to get through, just a horrible read. But you see that he got into the business, he's learning the business, he starts learning structure, and you go and you read what he's able to do now, and it's literally night and day. But that's because he cared to learn the craft. Yeah. And he's done books on writing every kind of screenplay that you can imagine, because he's done just about every type of writing that you can imagine. And he tells you in there is a different structure to everything. Yeah. And you need to know that structure in order to know not just how to do it, but how to break the rules and when you can break them, and how to write better.
Yeah. In fact, he does one of the best books on writing ever, on writing anything, called Becoming a Writer, Staying a Writer. Mm-hmm. And if you can get through that thing, and Harlan Ellison, who he quotes, called writing a holy chore. And if you can get through this book without feeling fired up, you have no human soul. He has a passage at the end of the Becoming a Writer section that talks about the Nazi Empire, backed by the greatest military organization in the history of the world, lies in the dustbin of history, while the quiet words of Anne Frank persist.
Wow.
Wow, is that a gut punch or what?
Let's all give up now with that.
Yeah. Yeah, but it shows you that what we do as creators is important. And it shows that you should have this passion to create the best work you are able to do, to draw on all the best influences, and then filter it through your own experience.
The second greatest mind of the 20th century, Albert Einstein, said it's not about intellect, it's about imagination.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
So that's coming from him, and he's a mathematician, astronomer, whatever he was, physician.
There's a lot. There's a lot about Albert Einstein and all the scientists around at that time, especially Niels Bohr, Schrödinger, all those people that were talking about the early aspects of quantum physics and how they relate to our perception of reality. Actually these guys were so much deeper than just scientists. They had a real insight into what they thought maybe was underpinning our reality, and were completely befuddled by it. And that's moved on in modern day to people trying to pin it down, but they would have a different opinion than current science would. I think.
Can I just correct myself? I said he was a physician. I meant physicist.
Physicist, yes.
Just before anybody jumps on my head.
We know what you meant. Yeah, we know.
It probably will anyway.
Albert, it hurts when I do this.
Facebook user, if you go over to YouTube and sign in, please. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the Indie Comics Network, please go over there and do it. We'd love to know who you are. So right now you're just a faceless Facebook user. So Scott McCloud's making comics is pretty good too. Yeah, pretty good.
Definitely.
Renato's got like the last 3 comments are fantastic.
Yes,
we're working our way
through it. 5 streaming,
3 watching, looking good. 2 watching. No, yikes. Yeah. We've been jumping down. You solved that link problem. John Carr asks, "Are there great anthology comics being published these days?"
Oh yes.
Mm-hmm.
You have to hunt them down, but they're there. Yeah.
Depends on your taste, but they're out there.
A lot of them are crowdfunded.
Yes.
So
look at crowdfunding. There's a lot going on, and they're great.
Yeah.
Ronaldo, Cruz clicked on Facebook link.
Some jive.
Crazy. It's just a problem in the programming. Not unusual. It might be unusual, but it's not unexpected. Gamer culture's wiped out the people who would have come into comics as writers. No, I don't think that's true either, because I think there's a lot of people that came into comics looking to get right or hoping to write for comics that were shoved out by the larger publishers or the larger companies who had their buddies over here writing the books for them, or somebody that they met at the bar the night before suddenly gets an X-Men book.
In all fairness to Renato, I think they're talking about literally from child, from what we had is we wanted to do this as kids. We saw it and we wanted to be
Gotcha.
part of it and wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're not seeing that, which is part of my point about it not
Yeah.
being on the shelves. Is
Mhm.
that what juvenile culture is games.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, is computer games in one form or another. There's fantastic stories being told through computer games, but we're not telling fantastic stories through comics anymore. The mainstream are missing. They're missing a real market. They're
That's
missing that juvenile
exactly
market.
why manga is the
And why
as
why
successful
manga is
as it
doing
is.
so
yeah.
well.
Exactly.
But all you got to
Manga,
do is look at the
webtoons.
European market and see how to do it properly. It can be done.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of other great points by Renato later on.
Yes.
Well, and also, how were we raised? Like when I was a kid, Brian, shut up. Here's a comic book.
Yeah.
Or go sit in front of the TV. Whereas now, kids are shut up. Go play your game.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
When,
It's
when
the
I
same thing.
when I was 12, Brian or Randy will know this issue. You know that issue with the Fantastic Four with Black Bolt, the yellow cover. Is
Yes.
it Doomsday?
Mhm.
I walked in. There was a newsagent near me on the way to school. It's called Pages newsagent, and I walked in there. And this was a rare occasion because usually I would go home for my lunch, but I was given money to buy my lunch that day. And I walked into this Pages shop, and in the rack was that Fantastic Four cover. And I spent my lunch money, and I went hungry, but I was happy because I had this Jack Kirby epic in my hands. And I don't know whether children would do that, because I suppose they would have to buy the latest app for their lunch money, wouldn't they? Because all I
Probably.
see, there's a school near me, and all I see are the kids grazing. I don't know whether they've eaten breakfast or not, but there's a sandwich shop, and they all come out of there eating burgers. And this is 8:30 in the morning, burgers and sandwiches. And people are just grazing these days.
Well, that's
I
because
think we
school
were
lunches
probably half
nowadays-
starved.
I mean, the school lunches nowadays are going to be worse than the burgers that they're getting at the other place. So I get the kids.
There's a point. Yeah.
Good point.
Renato also says the professionals at Marvel and DC work for brand management companies and have middle management attitudes and a deep resentment to the pioneers and masters. Jealousy.
Oh yeah.
That's a
Good
lot of it.
point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
A lot of them up there now think that they're helping themselves politically by tearing down what they consider to be a toxic masculine entertainment field.
Yeah.
That's why you have the problems in gaming. That's why you have the problems in comics, and it's spread all
I think
across.
it's throughout the world, isn't it?
And a lot of these corporations, don't care how their icons are treated as long as the brand is secure.
Yeah.
So they don't care about what happens to Superman as long as that S is out there in every book. So
Yeah.
they find that they end up with substandard writers and artists as long as that logo and that base look of the character is out there. They don't care what the heck happens to the character in the meantime, or even how many books that they sell, because printing for them is such a small amount of profit compared to putting that brand on underoos or selling that wristwatch that has the logo in it.
But it isn't just that, is it? It's like we talk about substandard writers and artists. Substandard in what way? If they may well be absolutely perfectly fine as far as writers are concerned for NCIS or for something along those lines, which is perfectly valid. Okay, perfectly valid and perfectly acceptable. And then artists. I mean, there are some fantastic artists around today. Okay, that are producing great work, especially for DC. Okay, superb stuff. But it's the vibe, and they're doing their work in a certain way, which is, again, repeating myself, off the backdrop of the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're doing what they're doing, okay, because they're assigned to do it, and that's the way that it's expected that comics should be, and that's the problem.
Well, they're also doing it for editors and executives who don't care and don't know that.
I'm not disagreeing with you
That
there,
is-
Randy. Of course, that is the case. But those that are there that are quality are still wrapped up in an environment, in a comics environment that just isn't the same place anymore. It's not trying to do the same things as it was 40 years ago, which primarily is entertain. And it's just not hitting the same vibe anymore. And of course, that's reflected in the way that the comic pages, the stories are represented, and in the way that they're produced, even. Well, so it's not always. I don't think it's always about quality. It's not always about a quality dropping because of executive decisions. Although I do absolutely agree with you, that is a big part of it. Some of it is just the way that people approach, the way that the creators approach comic books now.
Yeah, there's no sense of wonder. It's like back in my childhood, it's like Superman just lit this 20-mile long matchstick and reignited the sun. When you're
that's great.
Go back and I'll tell you, it's there. It's there. I'm telling you.
That's why I never read DC and preferred Marvel.
And that's why I love the old Supermans, because they're misogynist. They, God, how he treated Lois Lane was awful at times. Hey, let's trick her to try and cut my hair again. Batman, guess what I just did? So that's why there's a website called Superman is a Dick. Okay, but anyway, you had these incredible sense of wonder, like the old Fantastic Four. We're going into another dimension today, kids. What are we going to find? Hey, there's Blastar. Let's meet our new friend Blastar as he's trying to destroy us. But, there's this sense of wonder and this epic scale, that this wondrous imagination that got unleashed over the years, that's the stuff that, like, all of us in this room were exposed to.
Right.
And unfortunately now, and also team-ups. Back in the day, like I remember seeing an ad for Strange Tales Annual #2 with the Human Torch and Spider-Man. I wanted that comic with every fiber of my being, because this was something that didn't happen every day. Now you have these things happening every issue. Yeah. And characters now, they always meet up. They always have these epic battles. It's like, it's almost like drugs in that you have to have a bigger hit every time.
They don't even have epic
but you reach
anymore.
a point where...
if only those battles were epic,
Yeah.
Now they get together and go out for milkshakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Brian Bendis, now that's the sort of scene that Brian Bendis would do well. Yeah. Where they're talking to each other, because I think he's one of the best dialogue guys in the biz. But I wouldn't buy a 20-issue series of that. Next, dessert. That sort of, that's just not the sort of thing that flips my switch after a certain point in time. But little quiet moments, pacing is another thing that we haven't brought up that's very important. One of my influences is Hitchcock, Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah.
Because you watch his films and you notice that especially his later stuff, when he realized what he needed to do, like let's take Psycho. It builds up to the murder of Janet Leigh. Then there's this quiet moment where all the pieces are being put into place. James Bond films are especially good at this too. Actually, lead up to action.
Tension, don't they?
Yeah, it starts out with action. James Bond movie starts out with action in that opening scene. Then it builds up to the big menace, big action. Then quietly moves to the other places. Lets the interaction between the characters build. Yeah. The pacing is very important, and a lot of people don't see that.
This is that James Bond example you said, Brian, is exactly what we're saying about the Kirby Captain America as an example.
Exactly.
There was a piece of action like I keep referring to that Tumblr. You've seen that page, haven't you? Where
yes.
The
oh, goodness, yes.
It's incredible.
Great example.
And it's like, wow, what's this? And that's the storytelling aspect of the whole thing, and that's imagination as well that I was saying before. Yeah. And I think
imagination.
That is the key.
And it seems to be lost. I don't know where it's gone, but it seems to be lost.
Yeah, well, even in your favorite comic, deconstructed. I think that's something that everybody thinks are Alan Moore now.
Yeah.
So they can write like a page and a half single lines of the first panel of your book.
And everybody that thinks that hates Alan Moore.
Yeah. Now, I just hate the people that think they're Alan Moore. Those are the ones I despise.
Even Alan Moore hates Alan Moore now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Alan admitted he's got a lot to atone for. But no, Glenn, like your favorite comic, the FF-51.
Yeah.
That starts out with the Thing standing in the rain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's not an action scene, but you look at that and you're like, what's he doing? He's smart enough to wear a raincoat.
Yeah.
He's got an umbrella somewhere, maybe two of them he needs, but it's something that makes you want to turn that page and find out why he's there or why this is happening.
Yeah, and it's very clever, that story, because he's
is.
walking through the park, isn't he? And he's really pissed off about stuff, and then he goes to that guy's house, and you think, who's this guy? We've never seen this guy before, and I think he might have been in one panel in the previous issue, but it builds the tension. It's like you said with Psycho, and because a lot of people I know think that Hitchcock makes horror films, and he doesn't. He makes suspense films.
Exactly. There's a
and
difference.
He builds the tension. There's a fantastic scene in Marnie when she goes into the office and the cleaner's there, and she takes her shoes off and she walks past her, and it's the most incredible piece of cinematography ever. You know which part I mean? When she it's incredible, and all it is a person creeping by somebody with the shoes in their hands. It's amazing, and that's what he was a master of. And Kirby builds attention as well. All the good art. Steve Ditko builds attention, that's what it's all about. Just building that, making you uneasy, making you know that something's going to happen, and making you want something to happen. And it does. And these guys never let you down, but it's never what you think. And you think, wow, look at this. These are the best, And I think that's to do with imagination. These guys had imagination, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of it around in TV or whatever. They just keep rehashing the same old crap, changing things because of the latest trend in culture, shall we call it. Changing this person to be this and that and that and that, and I know that I don't agree with any of that. Make up a new story with a new character. No
or
imagination.
Turn it on its head.
Don't take mine from me. Don't take mine. Create your own.
Or like Alan Moore did with Swamp Thing, with that anatomy lesson. All for years. For 15 years, we thought he was a man who became a plant. Then all of a sudden, we discover he's a plant who's been fooled into thinking he's a man.
But
it doesn't invalidate anything, though. Yeah, that's genius.
Genius.
Yeah.
And then from there, he was able to talk about the potential for like this plant or this sort of Gaia kind of thing. Gaia kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then be able to go to hell. And I mean, God, that's just such. I mean, I've got the whole set of books here. I pick them out every year. I pick them out and flick through them and read that whole journey to hell and when he went off with the Green Lantern and the bat when he went to Gotham and
yes,
wow, this is just fantastic. And even though it was a darker, I suppose it was darker in some ways because before that it had been almost comic horror and it got almost like. Before Alan Moore, it was Hammer House of Horror.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And after Alan Moore, it was more Stanley Kubrick.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. It was like it was so damn good. And yet, exactly what you're saying, it never invalidated anything that had come prior to what Alan Moore had written.
And to think that it was big business that, in a way, took that away from us, because if they'd given Alan what he deserved, he probably would have stayed.
Yeah, but
and
it's not just about
they lost anything else that might have come later.
Yeah, and then a whole bunch of people tried to emulate him instead of it being him.
They still try.
But it's that whole exactly what Glenn was saying about like we've got Watchmen, we've got we've got Swamp Thing, we've got Killing Joke, we've got all these great darker stories. Okay, let's do everything like that now. You're missing a trick. You've got to do it like everything, and it's much like that with new characters. And with characters of diversity, let's call it. Yes, damn it, put them in. Please. But don't get rid of the old stuff. Okay, keep it all because the wider your audience, the more you're going to sell comics.
Yeah,
really. Out of all of that, though, I think that we're missing the true, shall we say, culprit in all of this, and that's Frank Miller and Dark Knight Returns, because that book sold so much that's the book that the editors took around to everybody and said more of this. Or else I think we would have a whole different level of writing if they were actually truly trying to emanate more.
Well, they imitate, a lot of people imitate like the surface elements of Alan Moore and Frank Miller. Like Alan Moore does horror. Okay, I'll put in gory stuff. No, make me scared. I think the most scared, like that one sequence where where Abby from Swamp Thing, where Abby finds out that Arcane is in her boyfriend. His spirit's in the boy, and there was one line that, like, I kept reading it over and over because it was terrifying.
Yeah.
Mummy needn't know.
Oh, it's just hideous stuff.
Oh my God, it's so simple, but it's relatable to us on this level.
Yeah,
you know,
and the one with the abominable snowman thing, the white creature, and the kid that was dreaming it, and it was, oh God, it's like this stuff is fabulous stuff.
Fantastic.
And very little gore.
Exactly, it's all up here, just like Hitchcock.
Extreme imagery.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, because it's a comic book. Okay,
Yeah.
The story,
you know, but
the story I remember reading of Alan Moore's that made me really sit back and go, wow, this guy is a writer. Look at this. Was Miracle Man story. After he had made love to his longtime girlfriend or wife or whatever, and
Liz,
she realized that this was Miracle Man. She woke up the next morning and knew that life was completely different. And she's going around touching things, realizing that everything has changed.
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Just some brilliant writing.
Or one of my favorite sequences in number 24, where he's introducing the Justice League. There's a house above the world where the over people gather. There's a man with wings on his back like a bird. There's a man who can see across the planet and wring diamonds from its anthracite. You know, I'm like, whoa! I remember picking up that issue, taking it home, and sitting on my bed in my apartment, just reading that first page just over and over, and just savoring. You know, just the dialogue on that one page.
And it's that stuff. I mean, it's not just dialogue like that. It's forsooth, does the mother know you are using your cape as drapes? It's like it's Shakespeare in the Park, and like you go back to when I was reading Fantastic Four reprints out of Captain Britain, okay, with the really dodgy Captain Britain accent, okay, because it was written by Americans and drawn by Americans, so they didn't quite know how to do a policeman. But it still didn't matter. It was fantastic stuff, and the some of the, we talk about dialogue, and some of the dialogue, especially from Reed Richards, could be a little bit overblown, but it didn't matter because it was all the time. It was giving you something. It was making you move forward, and I wouldn't have read The Lord of the Rings. You know, I wouldn't have read any of the great science fiction work that I've read, Asimov and what have you. I wouldn't have read any of that stuff if I hadn't have read that dialogue in those comics.
Yeah,
sure.
Because it expanded my mind and it made me think, well, what the hell is that word? You know, how do you say that? I had to go to a dictionary to find these things out as a kid. Okay, and that's what it's. Some of the dialogue, some of the way the things were written, even the kooky stuff, that some of the Stan Lee stuff, which again I think is genius, just because of the way that it is. It just did something to you. It sparked you off, and you just like, this is, I've got to read this again and again and again, and then I've got to look at obviously from an artist's perspective, was completely drawn in by the artwork as well. So some of those scripts, they're just special, and you don't get that anymore. What you get is a lot of word salad, unfortunately. Not everywhere, but in a lot of places that they think is maybe poignant, but it isn't. It's just lots of words.
Yeah, exactly.
A little more than stretched out storyboards and terribly self-referential notes for TV shows, movies, rather than something that has its own medium.
Well said.
Since Germany cared when Captain America came out, for example.
Yep. That's true.
Example of the brand management, soulless stuff, different colors of Hulk or Green Lanterns, wasn't organic or storytelling. It was just to cover all possible trademark variations. Sad.
Yep.
It is sad, but it doesn't mean that it can't be done well. I mean, all you need to do is look at He-Man. Okay, all right. Yep. I know it's simple, and I know it's kooky, and I know it's based on toys, but it was still great fun. Okay, and there were some comics out. What those comics that came out sort of mid noughties that were apparently very, very good as well. And it's all about licensing, that aspect of it. I think you've got to be prepared to live with, you know, the fact that it is an entertainment business. We are in the business of making stuff that entertain, whether it's kids or whether it's adults or whatever, and accept that and move with it. But at the same time, exactly what Renato's saying. There are times when it's just obvious. That's all they're doing. It's just a play for cash rather than some creativity to entertain people. And then because they are entertained, they will invest. They will, whether that's a kid investing their imagination or a parent investing or a fan investing in a statue. Yeah. They'll invest because they're entertained.
You can understand why they want to keep the copyrights and trademarks and merchandising and films. You can understand that. But like you say, that doesn't mean or shouldn't mean that they can't make a decent story to maintain those copyrights and things.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, instead of turning out some crap just to, you know, Spider-Woman, or just because they've got some hint that somebody might make it, or She-Hulk and that kind of thing.
And that's literally how you keep those brands and copyrights going.
Yeah, but you can still make the books good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're going to have a generation coming up that their idolization of the Marvel universe are going to be those movies.
Yeah.
Oh, I have people already I talk to that, you know, I'm a big Marvel fan. Then you start discussing the comics with you, and you start talking about with them, and they look at you like you need subtitles.
Right.
What's that great clip that is shown on these podcasts where that girl, I think she's the newsreader, she says, "Oh, Superman was my great," and, you know, and you think, look,
Randy has it.
That sums it up, doesn't it?
I turned my resignation after that comment. You know?
I got that. This is an actual news broadcast.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite Marvel Comics hero? Mine is Superman. Remember the motto? With great power comes great responsibility.
It's always good that Meghan Markle gets out there and
is that girl who read that Sigourney Weaver's sister?
Sure looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, it does look a bit like it.
Well,
she's a quick teleprompter reader, and I would imagine she saw the S and the N and thought Superman instead of Spider-Man.
Yeah. But somebody was playing a joke on her.
You can't expect everybody to know. I mean, there is a certain aspect to comics where it can be, you know, there is that nerd aspect where we're caught between a rock and a hard place. On the one side, we want to keep the soul of comics intact, and we love some of the canon or a lot of the canon that had come before the films and what have you. But at the same time, we're always eager to get a wider audience. So you do have to accept some of it. I mean, I've said this before. I'll repeat myself. The way I feel about the Marvel movies, the MCU, is much the same way I feel about the Nolan Batman. They're a version, okay?
Yes.
They're a valid version of that source material. But just don't forget the comics. Keep them. I think the biggest, and I've heard plenty of people say this, the biggest crime against comics is Marvel having 10 years in the cinema and not having comics in every cinema foyer.
Everything.
Having a spinner rack. And because there is this aspect of we have to change everything, we have to make it our new thing, they didn't want, they were almost like they became embarrassed about the old stuff. Okay.
Yes.
And the thing is you could have still put say a female Thor. See that nothing wrong with the female Thor. I understand that the story was actually very good. Okay, and it's a plot device has been used in the past to swap characters out and then bring them back again. Okay, and a lot of people got very uptight about it. Okay, but which is silly because it was always going to be the case that Thor was going to come back.
There was a time Thor was a fraud.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
But my point
those being are treasured issues.
My point being is you had Avengers and you had the Thor films, and Thor was a woman in the comics, and it's like that's stupid because kids are going to come out of the cinema and go, well, that's not what I've just seen on the film.
Yes.
Okay. And even then, you know that's not going to work because they haven't even got the bloody comics in the cinema foyer. All right. However, if you had a bunch of, this is what I've been saying for a long time, Marvel should have just split everything up in the same way they had the Ultimates. They should have had all their new comics, you know, Jane's Thor, and then you have reprints of all the old Thors sitting right alongside it. Okay,
yes.
And people can come out and go, oh, that's the Thor I've just seen in the cinema. Who's she? Oh, I'll pick that up as well. And you've got both. You've got both comics,
good idea,
good lines.
Great idea.
Not only
And-
that, but they've
and
already
they missed
explained.
the trick. They completely missed it because they
they've
had no
already
respect for the comics.
And they've already explained away how they can get away with that if they would just do it.
Exactly.
Because there's a multiverse out there, and there's all these different versions of these characters.
They didn't even need the multiverse because chronologically, she was closer to now, and the old reprints would have been further in the past.
Well, just imagine.
But you can always split them up into like, okay, this is our 616 set of titles. This is our movie titles, and these are new current titles that we're exploring different characters and different ideas. And you just have three different. They've done it before by putting these, different brand names on them. Marvel 1, 2, and 3, or whatever you want to call it. And there's so many ways they could have done that. But I think the core of it is that so many people, even in the comic industry, don't seem to have the same respect for comics. That comics deserve. They're an art form. They're a medium. They're a genre all of their own. Okay, and they deserve respect. The kind of respect that they get in Japan, and the kind of respect they get in Europe.
Everywhere else,
which
but
they
here.
don't get. They don't get in. And so even people working in the industry or using it as source material, I don't think had that kind of respect for it. So they and also there's the money aspect because of the last 40 years, the way everything has gone, direct market. They didn't feel there was any money in it. There's not enough money in it for Disney to do that. So it's kind of all of it comes together in this perfect storm to push comics down. Okay, so that people don't see them as exactly like Brian was saying, as I love Marvel. Yeah, I love all the films. They don't even think about the comics anymore, and it's this whole. It's a big perfect storm that makes this happen.
Or I'm working at Marvel, and my only experience is seeing X-Men on a cartoon on Saturday morning when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But even so, if that was the thing that made it happen for you, and you came in and you respected the medium, it wouldn't matter, would it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I don't want to get involved in this. I know there's been an argument the last few days about somebody who's been in the industry a long time and somebody else who they didn't like. Okay, I'm not going to get involved in that. But it doesn't matter if they have only had 17 years. And I'm not coming down on anybody's side on this, all right? I've only been in the industry, since 2015, technically, because that was my first professional job. Okay. All right. And prior to that, I'd been doing indie stuff since 2010. Okay. I got taken on by Marvel in 95, but I never got any work out of it. All right. Does that mean that I'm not allowed in the industry? Now, whatever that argument is over there, I'm really not interested. Okay. The point I'm trying to make is, as long as you love it, as long as you want to be there, as long as you want to do it, as long as you want it to be about comics and not about other things, then come everyone, come all. It's for everyone. Just get in there and respect it properly. Okay, that's all I would ask.
Totally agree.
Yep.
Totally agree.
Couldn't agree more.
Well
Just
said.
imagine where the brands would be now is if every time a superhero movie came out, there were 2 or 3 even British annual style books available. For $10,
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that
the theaters get to keep a little of that money, and these kids get a book full of these stories.
I think it's just not joined up.
The one for the new character and one collecting the great stories of the old character.
Yeah,
just available there as they go in or walk out.
Yeah,
it's just not joined up, and it's not joined up because of that. There's a little bit of a sort of a sneer towards the older stuff, I think, from the current industry. They don't like all that old stuff, and there are some out of date viewpoints in it, but there are plenty of quality stories and comics without those viewpoints on show that you could put into a line that you could sell on to a juvenile audience, along with new characters or new twists on characters or new stories or whatever. You could do the whole thing. They'd make a pretty buck out of it. I think the problem is much like we've had Roland Mann on, who's suggested this, that in some of his meetings he's seen this attitude of, it's not about does it make money, it's how much money does it make.
That's true.
And that's part of the problem with comics, is that as a smaller publisher, if you're getting out 20, 30, 40,000 issues of something, and you're making $30,000-$40,000 an issue, that's great business. That's absolutely great business. But for Disney, it's peanuts. They're not interested. They don't care.
And the big thing is
that's the
they're
problem.
Yeah.
comics always are looking at the short term, especially these larger publishers who know that their customer isn't the reader, it's the retailer. So you get the variant covers, you get the special events, you get the oddball character doing an oddball thing that'll bump that book up in value so that you'll get the notice or the publicity temporarily. It only lasts for a couple of issues, and then those sales drop even lower than what they were before.
Yeah,
it's already been a proven fact. They need to stop doing it.
I think you could fix that by putting comic books on 7-Eleven shelves and then giving special covers to the direct market.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's even why you get comic. I remember years ago, they've played around with the pricing. DC put out like a 12-cent like a 12-cent Superman, 10-cent Batman, and the retailers pushed back because they're saying, "Oh, we can't make any money on a 10-cent book." Whereas, like back in the day, comics sold for 10,000, or rather, they sell like 300,000 or 400,000 copies of a 10-cent book.
That's a lot of money.
But it's like you were saying about the short-term view of it. It's like, I'm not making per unit what I should be making on that comic for the space it's taking up in my shop.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if you sold like 10 cases in a weekend, you might have a different story.
Look at those 100-pagers they were selling through Walmarts for a while for $4.99.
Yeah.
What a phenomenal format. What horrible execution. Terrible reprints.
Terrible choices in the reprints.
Bad continuation. Just really crappy stuff.
Also, where they put them in the shop as well. We have a problem like that with W.H. Smith over in the UK. They're effectively the largest. You could call them a news agent. They turned into like a stationer effectively. So they sell all kinds of pens and letters and all kinds of stuff, paper. But they sell a lot of books. And they always have a newspaper section and a magazine section with kids' magazines in and comics. Yeah. And they're always just a mess. There's no way you can find anything. You wouldn't want to buy anything from them. But Panini specifically go for larger shops. I think they do have stuff in W.H. Smith's, but they'll go for retail chains like Tesco or Sainsbury's or Co-op or whatever, who also have quite large sections actually of magazines, and they get a far better showing there than they do in W.H. Smith's. But it is the same. It's the same kind of deal as the Walmart thing. It's like, because there's no care given to it. It's difficult to sell a product like that if it's all beaten up.
See, one of the problems that you run into, I did this with Crikey. When I put Crikey into Borders, I wanted to put it into W.H. Smith because that's, like you say, that's the bigger chain. But it was. This is what 2011, I think. I was told it would cost me £10,000 just to put it into W.H. Smith.
Jeez.
And that didn't guarantee that the people working in that particular shop, when that Crikey had sold off the shelf, would go and get the other 10 in the box in the back. Put it on the shelf. That's what you're up against. So I did the Borders, and Borders fell down, that story. But it cost me £2,000 to put it into Borders, which is still a lot of money, but it wasn't 10,000. But I still wasn't guaranteed that Phil, who works in the back, put those extra 10 copies out on the shelf.
Right.
But what I was going to say before was, how many billions of these films made? How many billions of dollars? Literally billions.
Yes.
My idea, if I was some sort of executive there, would be this. You were saying about putting a comic book on a spinner in the cinema. I'd give a free comic book for every ticket bought.
Yeah.
I'll
make it.
So that would mean that the kids would go in and get a free comic, or the dad, like us, the dad would go and see the film and bring a comic home.
That was one of the first recognized comics, was a theater giveaway.
That's true. And make that comic an original story.
Yes.
Not just something they pulled out from the archives.
Yeah. So
make it worth getting.
Or at least have a couple of stories, maybe front and back, that add to your movie experience. That are there.
You could show that Thor. If let's say there's a new Thor film, and I think Thor's a woman now. I don't know. I don't follow it. Show a story from the Kirby time. Show a story from Buscema. Make some and give it to the kid free. Say, look at this. Not only do we have this film with the Thor's a girl, but she wasn't always a girl. It used to be a guy. Oh, let's have a look at that. and then show the history of it.
Yeah.
The depth, the actual depth of what these things are.
Yeah.
That's what
I think you can, and any kids that want to go and see an MCU movie will be into that kind of stuff. They'll be interested in a comic. They will be interested in a comic.
Who's this Thunderstrike? Why is he a frog? Yeah.
Yeah. What's that all about, Ribbit?
Yeah.
What's going on there?
When the first Pokemon movie came out, right?
Uh-huh.
Like I think it was 8, something like that.
Yeah.
You got a free Pokemon card, which were getting huge, so everyone was going to get that special Pokemon card that you could only get at the movie, and you got a tiny comic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kids rushed
Yeah, they
to
lapped
the
it.
cinema,
Yeah.
pushing their parents to go
Yeah.
because they wanted those things.
Well, again,
exactly.
what you've got
Good
is you've got this approach to the market, which is a little bit disingenuous and possibly disrespectful to comics the way that they were, and also a push towards adults being the people that buy comics.
Right.
So you're not thinking about the juvenile aspect, which is probably why no Bright Spark over there ever thought about putting a spinner rack or giving away a free copy of something in the cinemas. Because it's tiny amounts of money for a large corporate like Disney when it comes to comics.
You wouldn't even need a spinner rack. You'd keep them behind the counter so that the person
here's
getting
your
a box of
popcorn, here's your Thor.
If the Avengers,
if
the Avengers made 1.2 billion or something or whatever it was, billion with a B.
Yeah.
And it might cost you $1 million to put that comic free throughout the world. I don't know, 10 million, but
this is all
$1 billion.
But this is all predicated on an idea that the executives in control have any respect for the comic book medium.
Yeah.
You crack me up.
I mean, that's
you're
the bottom
right.
line.
Bottom
That's
line.
the bottom line.
You're right, Russ.
And so these are all great ideas if you respect the medium and want to continue it. If you're not interested in it, or you've been told by your superiors, don't worry about that, we don't make enough money out of that stuff, then those ideas don't turn up, and even if they were, they'd be thrown out.
Yep.
So great ideas that we think are great ideas because we're concerned about comics, that part of the business is like, oh, I don't really care, which is why there's so much talk about licensing, was why there's so much talk about, because comics, mainstream comics, if you want to call them mainstream comics, but the big two, could continue quite happily if you made it so that, say, a licensee, made the money out of the, they pay you a license and then they go away and they decide what's going on in the comic, and they make it so that the market they go to, and as the licensee, as the licensee, they can decide if they're going to put it in, Walmart or Tesco's or 7-Eleven or whatever. It's up to them. It's down to them. They've paid the license. So it's up to them to make money out of it. And if they can they're a much smaller business. They're not like a multi-billion-dollar business or hundreds of billions of dollar business like Disney, who doesn't care about making a few quid out of a comic. They're a much smaller business proportionately that think actually making a 10, 20, 30, 100,000 quid out of a comic is a really good deal. So we're going to go get on and do that. And I think that's, I don't know, I don't have any inside knowledge per se, but I think that's the way to move forward for the larger producers.
And yet you have people up there like the DC executive at the time, Dan Didio, stunned, baffled out of his mind, doing the reprint comics that they really cut back on doing it because the reprint comics were selling more than the current comics. And he couldn't wrap his head around why.
Because they were fun.
And it's like, let me get a 2x4. Let me go get a 2x4 and smack. What's wrong with that thinking?
Dan Didio knew his stuff. He was good at what he did, but I felt his tone for DC was far too dark. And I think after, because they had Rebirth, didn't they? And then they brought Dan Didio back in.
And anybody who takes Sugar and Spike and turns them into Mulder and Scully, it's got to be wrong.
And Rebirth was going really well. Wasn't that Jeff Johns that was behind all that?
Yeah.
Rebirth was going great guns, and then Didio came back in and went, no, we're going back to the way things were with New 52 or whatever. Although New 52 had some success. And instead of it being lighthearted, it all went dark. And that was it. People didn't like it. And it's like, it's okay to have dark stories. It's okay to have a bit of grit and a bit, but you want to lighten it up you want to be able people to have fun with it.
We talked
If it's
about
constantly
that on
depressive, then writing comic books is about getting, enticing people in and giving them something that they can enjoy. It doesn't matter what the genre. It doesn't matter how you're doing it. You still got to. It doesn't matter if you want to put some ideology in it on occasion, some politics even. That's all fine. You can put that in. Just don't smack people over the head with it.
Right.
Give them their own opportunity to make their own decisions and entertain them.
We talked about that on the last Zimcast, or too much, too much barbecue. You can't have one particular type of food all the time. You have to have that variety out there in order to keep the meal unique and exciting. Yeah.
And that's why manga does so well, and that's why European comics do so well, because they don't try to funnel everything through the lens of superheroes.
Yeah.
They have a wide variety of genres. They have a wide variety of storytelling types and attributes. And if you've got a slice of life story, you've got a cultural story, you've got an ideological story, and you've got a superhero story, and you funnel them all through superheroes, it ain't going to work, because superheroes is bish bash bosh. It's great fun. It's pseudo science fiction. It's entertainment with there have been politics in the past. There is a little bit of that in there, and that's okay. But don't try and have them in the modern world. Okay. Yeah. When Stan Lee said it's the world outside your window for Marvel, it didn't mean it was literally that. It meant that it could ground itself.
Well,
could ground yourself.
You've never had Spider-Man. You've never had Spider-Man going past your window.
It could make you. It could make.
No, I don't live in New York.
That happens all the time.
It draws you in. The idea was of the world outside your window is to make it so that you could be drawn into it, so that it could be more acceptable, and you could think, oh yeah, like I could understand how Spider-Man's running up that wall because I've seen an alley like that. Yeah, I've been to an alley like that. I know what that's. Wow, and it helps you be part of that. It doesn't mean that you have to put every president in, or that you have to put every political decision in, or vote, or whatever it might be, or ideological stance you have. That's not the world outside your window. That's the world inside your house or inside your brain. Mm-hmm. And people aren't interested in that. They're interested in a great story that they can feel relates to them. Okay, and that's not always about what you look like or who you go to bed with. It's about core human aspects. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's what it's about. It's about love. It's about heroism. It's about humanity. It's about doing the right thing or the wrong thing, whatever that might be. But it's that's what the world outside your window is. It's like that. It's making it so that you can appreciate it from your perspective. It's not to say DC didn't do that, but DC is a bit more fantastical, or used to be a bit more lighthearted and a bit more that way. So
Max is in the house, Atrocity Press. Glad you're here. John Celestri in the house. Thanks, John, for listening in. Imagination is developed by being bored. Unfortunately, today's audiences are being bombarded 24/7 with stimulation demanding their eyeball attention.
Not me. I don't watch the telly.
Nor do I.
There's also a definite agenda which current comics are part of. No questions. Status quo, consumerism rather than genuine counterculture.
Yeah.
Question everything. Fly the flags of discontent.
Yeah. Who'd have thought that people of our age would be punk rock?
Exactly.
You know.
Well, who expected us to live this long?
Yeah, exactly.
I hope I die before I get old. Yeah.
I'd have thought I'd have died in a punk rock band by now.
True. If it has a soul, that's the essence of commercial art. Commercial, but also art. Soul elevates the medium. Yeah, that's true.
Nothing says you can't be commercial and not tell a good story or tell a relatable story.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Really, though, both. telling a good story and doing creative comics, that is commercialism.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that word gets out, and you might not get the sales on the first issue, but you'll definitely catch the sales on the third.
Yeah. And nobody ever did those classic stories that no, just keep your paycheck. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I don't remember any instance of that.
Renato says, I put my stuff out through global distribution, straight into Walmart, Borders, Target, you name it. No DC and almost no Marvel, but manga in that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's because of the accessibility of those properties.
Yeah, and it's like the comic companies seem, and a lot of fans seem to be like, well, why is manga working? Because that's not the way I would do it. Well, then why don't you change what you're doing to be more like manga?
Yeah.
You know, do
Well,
like
why don't you just do what we were doing 40 years ago, and then you can go alongside manga
There
and
you
be
go.
successful for your own reasons.
I say that
Yeah.
I say that a lot about the guys that are crowdfunding. You know, if you hate these crowdfunders, these guys are terrible, they're this and whatever, and it's like, look at the money they're making. There's a reason they're making that kind of money.
They're
And then
doing
sit back and take a look at what they make on their third and their fourth and their fifth book.
Yeah.
There's a reason Brian Pulido knows how to make $250,000 every time he does a campaign. It's because he did the work and he does a product that people want to buy.
In all fairness, though,
In that audience,
Brian
yeah.
Pulido, he doesn't have a platform. He doesn't have a YouTube channel or any of that kind of stuff.
He's
So
got Kickstarter. He's always had
No,
Kickstarter. That's
I'm
his
not
platform.
talking. No. That's not a platform. That's a way of bringing in the support. Okay, I'm talking about he doesn't have as it were, a voice. He doesn't have a podcast or something like that. And
It's got a regular Facebook presence.
yeah, but that's not the same as having some kind of audience participation platform.
Right.
Okay, and there are creators, nothing wrong with what they're doing, absolutely nothing wrong. If you can do that, that's great. Okay, and they're making a lot of money. Okay, and the discussion point is how much of it is the comic book and how much of it is the platform, how much of it is their character, their entertainment value as a YouTuber or whatever. Okay, and those are the discussions. Just like for me personally, I don't have that. That's not in my wheelhouse. I've got a YouTube channel. I've been on there. I come on here. I do what I do. Okay, and I'm honest and transparent. Okay, but I couldn't put that together. So when I do a crowdfunder, okay, I don't get anywhere near those kind of figures. Okay, and that puts me into a situation where I have to look at different options in order to get books out because it's about reach. It really is about how can you reach an audience with your books, and if there's only so much space on YouTube for big characters, okay, and for people with millions of followers, okay.
Don't complain. We're still
good,
making 5 times more than me.
yeah, I mean, good on them. Good on them. I don't have an issue with them whatsoever.
No.
But there's only a few of them, okay. And then there are so many people making comics. There are so many people making books, and so that's not. Crowdfunding is a great way of doing things, okay, and having those platforms is great. But that's not a business model for making books that will work over a large scale.
Yeah,
it just won't. It just won't. So we've got to find ways of getting out to a larger market, okay, with the books themselves, because there's two arguments. It's like there's a following you get, and so people buy your book, and obviously you'll get repeat custom, and if it's a good book, it will stretch out and get more. But then if you don't have that platform in the first place, how do you get people to buy your book on issue 2, issue 3, issue 4? Okay, how do you build that without being some kind of, really good radio presenter, jokester, or whatever kind of entertainment you are to the people that follow you or subscribe to your platform or whatever? So it is a conundrum. It's very difficult. But always, and this is exactly where I'll agree with you, quality speaks. Okay, so if you can create good quality work and you can stick with it, that's the issue. If you can stick with it, then I do think it has the potential for success. But you've always got to be looking at a certain amount of luck.
We've strayed a little bit off topic, but
what?
Yeah, anyway, about writing.
It's been a great discussion. Yeah, about writing, Glenn. Go ahead.
But it's all been about comics. It's mostly been about comics. You've got to admit that this
we bring up writers every now and then.
Yeah, we've been talking about comics and about how to the difficulties. I don't think we've been overly negative. There are obviously there are niggles. There are things that we don't like, but there's always the caveat. It's like just make comics, make great comics, get them out there, talk to people about comics, make people aware that the MCU is not the only place you can find out about Marvel heroes. You can read a comic about it as well. Okay, and just being upbeat about a medium that is something that I deeply love. I know that all of us do. And that's the only way to do it. Just shout about it, make it happen.
Look at Brian Polito. You see his crowdfunding efforts. That guy's a cheerleader.
Yeah.
Yes,
and the fact
is.
he's been doing this for 30 years.
It's a high energy
so he's
cheerleader.
long term.
And why I was saying what I was saying is that there is this definitive difference between the people that have platforms that are, good on them. I don't have an issue.
Right.
Have platforms, and somebody like Brian Polito is just making books.
Exactly.
He's just making books, and every time it's getting more and more, and he's delivering. He's not just delivering as in delivering on a schedule and delivering on a product. He's delivering on quality work.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he's making great books, and that's just, it's buoying the rest of us up without a doubt. He's a star, absolute star, that guy.
I agree.
Russ, tell folks how they can find you.
You can find me at russleach.com. There you go. I have
Brian.
all the connections. You can get everything there.
Brian, tell folks how they can find you.
RisingTide.pub. It has a connection to everything I do. Plus, I will be at SilCon in Mattoon, Illinois at the Cross County Mall tonight from 5 till 9 local time, where I'll be doing a comic book panel on World War II comics with Kelly Guntner, great cosplayer, great historian. And then we're there tomorrow from 11 until 7. And I'll be having comic books with me, graphic novels, and regular books, too. So please come see us. Admission is free. That's the Cross County Mall in Mattoon, Illinois. See you there.
Cool. Glenn, tell folks how they can find you.
You can get all my books and magazines and things on Amazon. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me here Friday mornings. You can find me on Comics Unlimited podcast on Ted Davis Artistry on Thursdays, and just generally around these fantastic conversations that we have with all these wonderful people that I've met over the internet.
There you go. Mike Jimmy, tell folks how they can find you.
You can find everything about me and all my comics on Linktree/Fairies and Ents. On Thursdays, I'm live with Hung on Animation, where I work on the animated pilot for my series Laugh and Korra. So be sure to check that out. I really love the animation part of it, and it's going hard. And on Saturdays, I will be live with John Celestri, Rodney Fike, Marvy, and am I missing someone? No, that's the entire list.
I'm gonna get my book up to a decent enough level where I can start showing stuff off and join you one of these Saturdays.
Oh, you're always welcome to join out. Actually,
just to show folks I can
I'm
draw.
not here this Saturday because I'll be at a convention.
There you go.
But yeah,
Let's all go on Mike Jimmy's show when he's not on it.
There we go.
I'll broadcast from the Cross County Mall.
There we are. That would be great. Yeah. Now, you can find me next on Sunday Funnies at 9 a.m. on Sunday, where we all get together and talk positively about the old comics, or the stuff that we love, the stuff that brought us into the business, the stuff that puts a gleam in our eye. We'll have Chad Perkins joining us, the young kid with a whole different perspective on comics. Will be joining us for Sunday Funnies. We'll see how that goes. And Glenn will be there. I'll be there. We'll see who else we can get there. And we'll see you then. Other than that, there's the Zimcast on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. I'm mostly keep calm and draw comics. Yeah. Most of the time, I'm on Dispatches from Outside the Box on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. as well. See, Michael Lanning has a topic that they adhere to a lot better than we do. Every week. Sometimes it's the strangest things that you can imagine. This week, I believe it's stand-up comedians, and how they inspire what we do. So I'll see you over there on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. on the Independent Comics Network, or the Indie Comics Network, I should say. Go over to the Indie Comics Network over on YouTube and subscribe now. Hit that bell for notifications. We are growing our subscribers organically, which means we aren't subscribing or using Russian bots to give us fake views or anything like that. We're growing it organically, and we've got the views. We just need the subscribers. So go over there and subscribe. If you like this content, tell your friends. Tell everybody to tune in. We are always archived over there, so you don't have to be up at 5 in the morning to watch Comics by Night. You can watch it over on YouTube anytime that you want, and we deeply appreciate everybody that does. It's just that if you want to talk to us live, you can listen to us live and join in on the chat. If you have a question, a subject that you want to, because I really want to turn this show into a how-to program. We want to talk about the bones of the business, how to get things done, how to write, how to draw. We're going to concentrate on composition here real quick and bring up comic pages and tear them down compositionally and show how what works and how it guides the eye, how it's supposed to do the job of entertaining. That's what I want this program to be. This is Comics by Night. We're here at 5 a.m, my time, late morning. Just about everybody else except for Brian. It's earlier in the morning for him. But deeply appreciate you being here. We all take our wives to work, and then for me, it usually takes an hour or so for me to unwind and get back to bed. But I volunteered to do this just to see how the numbers go, and the numbers were really good last week. So we're just going to keep going and until we can't, I guess. But I really want to turn this program into an instructional. I want to field questions. I want to know if you're having a problem out there with the bones of the business, not the politics, not the drama, the actual how-to. That's what I want this program to be. And we'll do it. We'll add to your questions. You can send me an email at thezimmcast@gmail.com. The politics and the drama and all of that we'll handle over on the Zimmcast, but the how-tos and the techniques and the that kind of thing I want to handle here in Comics by Night. Sunday Funnies, we're just going to talk about what we love, and most of the time that's those comics that put a gleam in our eye, like I said, and that fueled us in order to get into this business in the first place. So let's save that for that. Now, also on the Indie Comics Network, if you go over there, I'm starting to post short videos, how-to on cartooning. Basic characters, just to show you how easy it is to draw these characters that you've grown up with. We have one up there now that shows how to draw Hot Stuff, the Little Devil.
That was good.
And we've gotten a few hits already, and there'll be more coming up in the future. If I can get 100 hits on Hot Stuff, if I know that you're into that kind of stuff, because Hot Stuff's not a character that a lot of the kids know and a lot of the kids want to draw. I mean, anymore, all you see from Hot Stuff are tattoos and slot machines that I've seen lately. Yeah. And the Hot Stuff slot machine's awesome, by the way. But I've been thinking about getting a video of that just to show you how crazy it is. Nothing like seeing Hot Stuff duck walk using his trident as a guitar across the screen as you hit a jackpot. They used to have an old slot machine, and I only saw it once in one stray casino way up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. That was patterned after Ted, the movie, the bear.
Oh, wow.
And he would sit on the couch with his hand, like behind him. And every once in a while he'd pull out a beer and he'd chug while you were playing the slot machine itself. Then sometimes he'd jump off of the couch and pull a bat out from back behind him and smash the win box in order to make it increase. Every once in a while he'd jump off the couch and pull out an old Flash Gordon ray blaster and zap the numbers in order to give you a higher score. Just crazy stuff like that. And the Hot Stuff machine also, he'll poke around the corner and peekaboo at you every once in a while and do all sorts of crazy stuff. But anyway, I want to do more how-to and some of the more adult cartoon characters that are really fun and real easy to do. Rick and Morty and Beavis and Butthead, that kind of stuff. So if we get 100 hits over on the Hot Stuff video, I will do an instructional video on how to draw Demon Bitch from Christy Shin.
Oh, nice.
Sugar's in the house.
So go in there. Sugar's in the house. Right as we're leaving, Sugar. Nice to see you later,
Sugar.
Good timing is always impeccable. At least, Chris, you showed up, which is a lot more we can stay safe for Scott.
My mom just arrived, so yeah. I gotta go too.
Scott, where have you been, buddy? All right, we gotta run. Any last words from anybody as I dig up our intro?
Toodles Comics, especially ours.
Yeah.
Toodles Parmesan.
Toodles Parmesan. Take care, everybody. Have a great week. Have a great weekend. We're going out the way we came in. So, and you haven't seen this yet, have you, Brian?
Let's find out.
This will be great. Here we go. Take care, everyone. Have a good week. See ya.
What was that? This is not a charade. We need total concentration. Now, once again, this time, with theory.
That was our opening.
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay. Now we have this. We'll see everybody. Take care.
See ya.